Do I need to know programming in order to be a hacker? I think the reason why we ask this question so frequently, especially people just entering the field, is that the barrier to hacking feels huge. There's so much to know because I don't think people realize how generic the term hacking is. There's hardware hacking, there's web security, there's network, there's penetration testing, there's red team and purple team, malware analysis, bug bounty programs. In every one of them, like that vertical, you could dedicate your entire career to a single vertical and never be called like an expert. Mainly because there's no experts in this field because the field's just too big. So when we talk about like coding, oftentimes everyone's going to give different answers depending on what vertical they're in. I'm going to respond to it for like penetration testing. And I've said it previously on this channel, I don't think coding is an essential part when you're starting to learn, because there's just a lot you want to get experience in. And again, it's not an essential part, but it is something I feel that you want to touch and feel, because the whole purpose when you're starting to learn is get exposure to a bunch of the different verticals to find out what you like. You can make a career just around just being a generalist across all of these verticals, or you can make a career around a specific vertical. The reason why this question comes up so frequently, or like the reason I asked it when I first started hacking, was because it's a really difficult thing, and as humans, we tend to avoid very difficult things. When I asked it originally, I know it came from a place of I didn't want to learn to program, because it's like picking up, I would imagine, a new language like German or Spanish or any other language. Your first one is the most difficult, but once you start, you realize, okay, you start getting in the flow of it, and if you get one language, you can start picking up other ones. So I think that's why we ask this question, because it's very difficult to break that barrier in. It's not essential for a lot of like early on hacking things. Like if you're learning network penetration testing or application penetration testing, coding isn't really an essential part of that. It can become that when you come across like harder problems where you start hitting them a lot more often and you want to code a solution to like solve that particular problem. As I've said in other videos, when it comes to web, coding isn't really necessary, because it doesn't matter what the back end or front end is necessarily built in. Once it hits the browser has to interpret all these different languages. So you're going to like test the application using a web proxy like Burp or Paros or Zap or any of these other tools. Let's next talk about like why you would pick up programming, maybe a couple languages, and what like my biggest regret is. My biggest regret is that I didn't pick up coding earlier. Like there's lots of reasons why you would pick it up, but I think the biggest reason you would pick up coding early in your hacking career is because it helps with, I think, like one of the most essential things, which is that outside the box thinking, that hacker mindset. And when you pick up coding, I wouldn't necessarily like grab a tutorial and start learning all the different steps. I would come across a problem that you want to build a solution for. For example, like your first project you might want to pick up isn't like pulling an off the box solution like an Instagram clone and creating that, but thinking of a problem that you might face as a hacker and then build a solution around that. That might be building like something like a web scraper to detect changes to a website, or even simpler, just target a piece of infrastructure and monitor for changes. How would you go about doing that? And these are the things the problems that you have to start thinking through, and why I think coding is essential. Maybe even just conceptually thinking through the problem, going, okay, I need to nmap the server. I need to do that on some sort of cadence. I need to store those results. I then need to use ndiff after the results are stored. And then I have to build maybe some sort of webhook to notify me on my Slack channel or whatever notification that you want to get. Thinking through these problems helps you start thinking outside the box, and then building starts becoming a lot more fun when you're not just like grabbing some project and duplicating it, but solving your own problems. What language to pick up is always going to be a massive debate. I would highly recommend either Node.js or JavaScript or Python. Those are the two major ones. I think Python, if you're moving more towards like red teaming, network based, where if you're working more on applications, JavaScript is a great one to learn. You can build front ends and back ends for it. It's used prevalently, and it's growing at a crazy pace right now with so many frameworks just building on top of it. Whether it's TypeScript and React or Vue or any of these other ones, there's a lot you can do with it, and it's pretty easy to pick up. Both these languages are going to really accomplish a lot of what you want to do. but you don't have to understand like garbage collection and memory and threading and all these crazy worker things that like are hard concepts to pick up the first time. You can pick either one of them up and download like VS Code and just start playing around with them. The biggest recommendation I have is just pick one up and get started with some simple projects so you start understanding the concepts. If you got value out of this video, please give it a thumbs up. It lets me know I should be doing more like this. Leave any questions as a comment down below and maybe I'll shoot out another video like this. Thanks for watching and hack on.